Well, we are back at the DynAero and we are doing some work. So if you remember from all of the aerodynamics we were trying to do on the intake, this is that lip that we were doing all of that testing with. And I'm starting to work on the cowl with a more permanent solution other than sticky tape. And I'll see if you can see it on the inside here. Hose. There's, you can kind of see from the shape, there's just bits of 1/2-inch rubber hose in there taped together. And this is what we're using on the lip of the cowl. And it kind of sat right like that. So to give you a bit of a sense of just how much smaller the intake has become, that's what the intake was. And then when this was taped on, it sat nicely there. So just to show you how much smaller of an inlet opening, an aperture that we've got versus what we had, and that has increased the cooling efficiency of the system. So I think it's pretty interesting to see that, yeah, going from that to this, or from that to this, has actually increased the cooling efficiency. But that is, again, just refreshing you, is the intake area versus the outlet area was not well designed. The other thing you might have noticed that I have added is just while I was waiting for things to dry, I set this the other day, and this is just a really thin piece of silicone. And it's going to be a new skirt that will help seal the cowl to the inlet. So we'll just go over to the aeroplane so you can see for a second. And so originally, and what's currently on the aircraft, is just this tiny, very, maybe an inch long seal that goes to the cowl, except this seal's the wrong way because the air is flowing this way, and when the air is flowing this way, it can kind of get under this lip and all sorts of things can happen. So with the new intake, with that little rubber seal there, is that little rubber seal will now sit over the top of all of this, and so now it will direct the airflow all the way in. The airflow won't eddy current back out. The other thing I did is I've started to seal up this little inlet here. That was an inlet that would help cool the turbocharger, but again, I've got a little piece of silicone there that's just going to seal it up, so then all of the air that's coming in here is just cooling the radiator and the oil cooler. So I'll show you what I've already done. I did take a photo of what I started with, but I've kind of taken a leaf out of Bert Rutan's book, and I've just started with some just plain old blocks. And just to summarize, all essentially I did is I built up the shape with cutting and carving. And then in the meantime, I've now set a shape out of foam. Now, what I was originally going to do was take this, make a mold out of it, make a mold out of fiberglass of this, and then cast it and do all of that stuff. I've just ended up deciding that this would be quicker, and I've turned out to be right, that it is just a little bit quicker. So I've used this as my basis for the shape, and I've just started carving this out. And up on the lip here, I've gone ahead and sanded all of the paint off, so we're just down to the fiberglass underneath. And then this little guy here goes this way, is what's going to be the primary shape. And so this just needs to be cut and carved. And so that's what I've been doing, and I've just been doing it by eye. So you can kind of see I've got 2 marks there that I've just indexed. So every time I put this on and off again, I know exactly where it's sitting. And I've just been shaping it. You can see this isn't the final shape. In no way, this isn't complete. You can see there's gaps everywhere. But the way I'm going to do this is, my next step is I'm going to glue this onto the lip, and then I'm going to shape the foam to the actual cowl. And that's going to be, in my opinion, the best way I'm going to be able to get a nice natural shape. You can see I've got a lot more material here. This thickness is, just dropped it. this thickness this way is far too thick for what it's going to end up being. That's going to give me room to be able to carve it by hand by sanding it. I could use hot wire and all of that, but this stuff's so easy and nice to sand that I'm not going to go that way. I'm just going to end up sanding it. The other thing I do have is I haven't decided yet is I'm going to carve this, sand it, shape it, get a nice rounded edge. But I did buy this piece of balsa wood here. So if I do need a really well-defined rounded edge and I can't quite get it right or even on this, is I'll just cut off that length or lengths of it and just glue them into the edge here, and then that will give me something to lay the fiberglass on. So my next step is this guy's going to get glued onto this. I'm just going to use some Mega Epoxy, some structural adhesive epoxy, and glue that on and then sand it down. And then after it's sanded down, I could kind of see my lines of tape here, is that will all get sanded back. So then when the fiberglass gets put over, it'll all get blended and bonded in a nice big wide area. So it'll go in nice and strong. And how this is kind of working is I'm just trying to minimize my work. So instead of, cutting, there's a lip here, instead of like cutting that lip off and all of that, is I've just modified my bit of foam here to fit. So now there's like a ledge. So then when this goes into the cowling, my perspective is wrong looking through the camera, it kind of now, you can see it sits really nice and flush. And then now what that also gets me, is once this sits in there correctly, is it gets me a nice edge to work with for that nice airflow coming in. Now it is sitting in, it probably could go in just a touch deeper, but what I mean by deeper is, let's have a look from the inside. Kind of see there's a tiny little bit of a lip there that's left over. Just see if I can get my hand in here. There's a tiny little bit of a lip there, but I need something for the glue to stick on, and if I need to, I'll sand that back later just to make it look like it's from the factory, but I need somewhere for that Mega Epoxy to sit on. So yeah, this is going to be my next step for today, which I think it looks like it's going to work out really well. And you can see I've left an overhang here, and that's so again, when the Mega Epoxy goes in, it's going to squeeze out a little bit. And then when I come to blend all of this in, I'll be able to sand this all down onto the shape of the cowl. So I'm just going to be using all of the shape of this cowl, the natural shape of the cowl, to try and make it look standard. And so it's going to take a few extra hours sanding and getting it right, but it would have taken days to mold this, because what I would have had to have done with this is I can't use that as a mold, is I would have had to cover that with filler, like a car filler, crush filler, then sand all that back down, then make a mold of it, then make a mold out of it with fiberglass, then invert the mold, and then lay up stuff inside it, lay up fiberglass and carbon fiber. And then after I've done that, bring it over here, put it on, glue it on, bond it on with more glass, and then fair it on. So I feel like this way, if I had to do this to more aeroplanes, if I was building or having to fix another 5 of these aircraft, or there was a lot of them around that I deal with, I would make the mold. It's worth spending the time. But there's like 1 or 2 of these aircraft in Australia. It's a waste of time messing around with it. So this is going to be the most reasonable way forward, and it's just going to take a little bit of extra time to sand it all down. But other than that, we're looking good. I did notice a few things. It does look like I have a little bit of a leak, so I'll show you all of the good things and the bad things. The rest of the engine looks absolutely wonderful. No leaks, no nothing, everything is happy. But I did just notice when I pulled the engine apart, just being my little detective self, you can kind of see that down there looks a little bit red. And the colour of the coolant is red, and it looks like the coolant has been leaking between this pipe and that. So whether I haven't got this tight enough, but this basically part of the modification that I did for the engine is these hoses that went all the way back here and right near the exhaust. These hoses were silicon the whole way, and so hot exhaust silicon don't mix. So what I ended up doing is making up these aluminium tubes, and I'm just putting silicon there and silicon there. So this aluminium tube now has some heat resistance, but what I didn't do is I didn't flare these ends. So I just put the pipe in, just put the hose on, and thought the hose clamp would be enough. And typically it would be, but the day we flew this, it was really hot. Like, I mean, when we landed on the ground, our ground water temperature was 120 degrees. I think it was like 35 or 38 degrees Celsius outside. So it was almost way too hot to be operating an aircraft. And because it was running so hot, it definitely got a little bit hot and started steaming. So at 120, it's not quite boiling. The limitation here is 135. So the water wouldn't have been boiling, but the pressure would have been really, really, really high. And so it would have been leaking out through here because there's no lip or no raised section of this tube. So I'm probably going to put that in my list of to-do things, is maybe just put some around the ends so that these hoses won't leak. The other option is just putting a second hose clamp there, 180 degrees off, so that they clamp in the right area and just increase that tension. Because in reality, silicon and alloy really should make a really quite good seal, and they won't slip off. You know, silicon, even when it gets wet, really starts gripping. So I don't really want to drain all of the fluid out and burp it and do all of that stuff again. Yeah, it probably was the engine was just so hot, but yeah, we'll fix that. But other than that, all of the mods, all of the changes look absolutely wonderful. The aircraft flew really well. And yeah, even in those temperatures, we were able to take off, get in the air. It just was a little uncomfortable being in the cockpit. You know, you're in a greenhouse at those kind of temperatures, so yeah. But other than that, we're looking good. What was the other update I got? Yeah, this. So if you remember, we were also sort of saying we're having some minor issues with the propeller control. And I emailed the manufacturer of Ross Propeller, the brand that makes this propeller. Sent them photos of this, and the propeller manufacturer recommended that this drive unit and gearbox is being superseded. They got a replacement one, and they really recommend it gets replaced. Has a bigger motor, faster moving gearbox, and one of the problems this engine has is the prop can't quite keep up with the engine when the engine comes on boost. So I've recommended to the owner that we order that in. Yeah, so a bit of a downer there, but it's more than serviceable the way it is. It's just, it's not quite perfect. So yeah, that will be one of the other things that has popped up. Other than that, the landing gear, I was worried that I might get leaks with the landing gear because we did overhaul those gears, and they're running absolutely perfect, not a leak anywhere. They're holding pressure. Yeah, really, really, really nice. So just a small quick video. I'll probably update you as I keep going rather than making one big long video. But yeah, I'm really happy with how this is starting to come along, and it's really starting to look great, and I think you can kind of get the idea of what we're going for. Obviously this sharp edge here is going to get rounded down, and like I said, it's way too tall this way, so it's going to come down to probably about there. Obviously for prop clearance, the propeller, big spinny boys over here, so I need to make sure there's enough clearance there, and then blend it all together, glass it on, and away we go. But this is actually only fiberglass, but I do need to keep the weight because this is so far forward. I need to really be conscious of the weight that I'm putting on the cowl out here because it will change the center of gravity of the aircraft. So there probably will be some carbon fiber that goes on here as well, maybe just 1 or 2 layers of carbon fiber, and then 1 layer of fiberglass, and that will be bonded on. The only load that's there is their load, so it's not like it's structural. But I definitely don't want the thing falling off. Yeah, so interesting little look. Just some foam, carving, a sander, some files and all of that, and it should come up really nice. And then it's just going to be my job trying to blend the paint so it doesn't look like it sticks out like crazy. I'm not super good at painting. I don't really have the patience for it, and the amount of time and effort you have to put in for a really good paint job is very, very high, and compare that to a medium level effort. Yeah, medium level effort, I get almost the same result. So I put in medium level effort. So yeah, anyway, that's what I'm doing. Airplane stuff, slight difference to boat stuff, I guess. And yeah, maybe I'll No, you don't need to see the glue. All I'm literally going to do is put glue on it, put it on, grab some sticky tape to hold it down, then I'm going to leave it for a day or two so it sets, maybe just a day. So yeah, you don't need to see me gluing it. You just got to put glue there and put it on, sticky tape it on, and then walk away, come back and start sanding. So yeah, I'll go ahead and show you when I'm moving ahead. But yeah, plane's looking good, engineer's feeling good, looking good, and hopefully this will mean this plane is set for the next 10 years of its life, you know? That's really what we're trying to do, is so this will be far more efficient. And I really just think all of these small little things like this, that little seal there is really going to help. And a few other little things, sorry. You're like ready to click off the video if you've even gotten this far. There are a few other little things that I did spot that I wasn't happy with so this is part of that intake. And I could see there were some small air gaps in some of these areas. You can see where this grey sealant is. That grey sealant is me trying to block off little holes. And so what I could do before is I could look through here and I could see light down in those corners, which is where air will just spill out. So I've gone ahead and sealed all of those up. The idea being that even the tiniest, smallest little gap means that the pressure never builds in this front section, and our pressure recovery at ground level is really important with this aircraft because it's going to overheat. So any tiny little hole means that the pressure in the head of the radiator, if it drops just a tiny little bit, there's no flow. Because the only way air flows in and out is if there's a delta of pressure, if there's a difference in pressure. So if the pressure is the same at the front as it is at the back, there's no flow. And if there's a higher pressure at the front, lower pressure at the back, now there's flow. So just those tiny, tiny little spots where you can see light through, that is going to reduce the pressure in this by 0.1 of a PSI, but that 0.1 of a PSI could be the difference between flow being forced through the radiator or flow stagnating. And like you saw in those other videos where we'd literally see the prop pushing air into the radiator and coming straight back out because there was a low pressure sitting above the lip. So that low pressure that was sitting right up above the lip here is why the air would come out, go up to there, and then get blown out the back of the plane around the cowls. So we're really wanting to maximize this pressure recovery in this inlet. And yeah, so that's the only other thing I've done. So anyway, I need to slap some glue on this, and then I'm going to catch a train home. So I'll catch you later. Thanks for watching.